you think you're going to head down the road one way, and then there's these forks in the road.
Welcome to Dirt Magic, a podcast chronicling the Sierra Beach Trail Stewardship's mission of building sustainable recreation-based communities through stewardship, job creation, and world-class events, providing quality outdoor experiences through trail construction and maintenance in the Lost Sierra. I'm your host, Martin Scheel. On today's episode of Dirt Magic, we hitch a ride on the vision quest that is Sierra Beach Trail Stewardship's Connected Communities. A vision that was born some 7 years ago and has continued on a path to fruition for the last 5. And along this quest to bring communities together using trails as the path, the vision has gained new friends, new ideas, and in fact, a new route toward where we are today, the people's vision. 2 integral SBTS family members helping guide this vision are SBTS Executive Director Greg Williams and Director of Grant Management, Michelle Abramson. Well, Michelle and Greg, welcome back to Dirt Magic.
Great to be here, Marty.
Thanks, Marty.
So, there are words that sometimes describe momentous occasions and ideas. Words like moonshot, shoot for the stars, dreaming big, and having a vision. And 5 years ago, Greg, you experienced somewhat of a combo of these words that did, in fact, lead to a vision that would become, as we know it now, connected communities. And if you could, take us back and remind us what was the impetus and how it all began.
Yeah, well, it started probably 7 years ago with Greg Carter, who's our board president, at my house, and we started talking about really how we could help other communities, and drew like a circle around a map and started posting notes on this map about different towns, and like a few weeks later, I got invited to Mammoth to present at a summit called Mountain Ventures, and so I took this concept as my presentation instead of just talking about what we were doing, and I presented it as a moonshot idea, and I gave this presentation. And in the crowd was Bob Kingman, who was the executive director of Sierra Nevada Conservancy, who stood up and basically said, "I'm in, let's figure this out." So that process took a year to really define what the connected community was going to be and get the grant application submitted to Sierra Nevada Conservancy. And it got funded in 2020, right when COVID hit. So a lot of the things changed, but it's been quite a journey.
And Michelle, prior to you coming aboard at the Stewardship, had you heard of Connected Communities yet?
Yeah, I remember I went to the distillery in Verdi, and that was the first time I saw that map. So good job marketing, Greg.
And then for you coming in to the Sierra Beach Trail Stewardship, with this already a working project, but obviously you had to kind of take the reins of a lot of this project as well. So what was your first impression? And then, what did you have to do first?
Oh, whoa. Feels like 100 years ago, but it was 2 years ago. I guess I had to wrap my head around everything that it meant. Because yes, it was this cool, Greg had that, here's this moonshot idea, let's do it. But what does that mean on a very detailed level, on forests and counties, on agreements, on going through where could the trail be, where can't it be? So that was the biggest, I think the first thing I had to wrap my head around. Yeah. And then, also what next? What's step 2?
So with Connected Communities, when we first started this process, and there was a lot of public outreach, a lot of maps, but I think there was a little bit of confusion in the beginning that this trail or proposed set of trails was either being built, somewhat existed, because if it exists on a map, folks look at it and go, "Oh, wow, that's awesome. How can I go ride that today?" But in fact, this Connected Communities is a vision, and that vision encompasses potential future trails that we're currently working on and may have finished, areas of communities where they want outdoor recreation that may coexist with a trail system, So, Greg, to try to explain this to someone now so it's less confusing, what is currently the Connected Communities vision, the tagline or the mission?
Yeah, well, it started when we wrote the grant. It was called a Trails Master Plan, and we realized, like, getting into it, that to have a Trails Master Plan, we really had to also think about the trails that were existing on the forest, how those could potentially impact communities, how they would be maintained. So we realized, like, okay, this isn't so much as a Trails Master Plan. We also, as it started to expand into, it's 4 national forests, 6 counties, 2 states. Like, we realized that it was already big enough, and trying to create like an actual Trails Master Plan for every one of these forests, when their like management plan on the forest is almost 30 years old in a lot of them. So we just didn't have the capacity, and so it's a community driven vision, and it's we call it the People's Plan, because we went to each of these communities and had over 160 meetings. We had surveys that brought in like over 1,400 people to participate in this survey. And people were drawn on maps, like 800 people drew on maps where they wanted to see trails. So it's a community-driven vision. It's not a Forest Service initiative, although the Forest Service did collaborate and did a lot of desktop review. We sat down with like botanists and biologists and archaeologists from the forest to see areas like where we should stay out of, areas to avoid. So, People's Plan.
And Michelle, that brings up, the logistics of what you do on a day-to-day basis of, from dealing with grants, writing grants, there's ground truthing, information that comes back to you, where the trail's going to go, where it can't go. So this isn't your typical day's work when we have an existing trail that we're proposing. We have to get approvals, environmental, get money, and start digging dirt. This is something quite different.
Right. Yeah. I guess, that's exactly it. It was because it was so big. That was the big part of it, is like, you need to think of it on a small scale and a large scale, because what are the impacts of building a trail that connects between all these different forests in different states and cities? What is the effect on the, 5-foot square around that trail, and also on having these big connections throughout these towns? So,
well, I imagine too, each town is very different. The town of Quincy is very different from the town of Loyalton, and what may be their recreational ideas and goals, and even access to trails. The multiple forests and counties. You've got governmental agencies to deal with as well that can be very different, amongst those counties as well. So, I like the vision idea. I think that's a good definition of it. And so moving forward with that, a lot of this work that had been compiled, and for a great amount of time, we did in fact call it the Trails Master Plan. And really internally, I think we kind of took it for granted. We understood what it was. It still was a vision. But when that word gets used in the public, almost immediately, especially if you're in the government world, that is something that does exist. Greg mentioned it earlier. There are recreation plans, there are travel plans, road plans, trails plans. Unfortunately, in this day and age with lack of funding, many of those plans are old, decades old, some of them half century old, and maybe some not even exist. So what is our forward movement to get past, kind of the angst of against, this isn't set in stone. This will always be a working vision, a working plan, so to speak. What are we currently doing?
Yeah, there's a lot of pieces to this. That some of these projects that we are working on now, while they were included in this vision, like, they started some of them 20 years ago. So I think when you see projects right now that maybe are in planning or they're in development, those projects started years before we even thought about connected communities. That's how long projects take to go through to get, the Forest Service. We primarily work on Forest Service land, so to get permission and support to move a project forward generally takes a year. And then trying to fund the environmental work, which is called the NEPA on the federal side. And then here in California, we do CEQA, so a California version, and we do those two together. But that can take up to 3 years, but it also takes time to fund it. There's not a lot of funding sources out there. And then you have the surveys that need to happen. So these projects don't happen overnight. And the ones that are in the works now were pre-connected communities. So moving forward, it's more of just like a guiding principle, and one of the things I think we're proudest of is that it created like best management practices for how we do business, how we engage with communities, how we engage with tribes, how we bring a project to the land manager, the quality of work that we do. We developed our own conservation plan, which was really extensive. Fire hardened trails came as a best management practice through this. So it really tightened up like our way of doing business, which is really cool.
It's really been a learning vision for us. Even though we may have had an outline of in the very beginning of how this was going to progress. I mean, especially during the pandemic, the public meetings, one or two of them even being outside in the snow. Because, we were all supposed to stay 6 feet apart back then and everybody maxed up. But this was, this has kind of turned into, a recipe, for grandma's meatloaf, but you can kind of make it your own. You don't have to stick to that hardcore recipe. It's really, how it's going to fit you in your community. And Michelle, I mean, how does that, how do you see that? You deal with a lot of these different communities, a lot of different forests on a day-to-day basis. And is there, what are the biggest challenges in between those, like one county to another county, or, pros and cons?
That's a really hard question to answer, Marty. I guess I'd just say that Trinity Sterling did the first half where she did that first. Greg was there too, going to the communities and asking what they want. And I kind of did the second one. So I did that last year or 2 years ago, where we went around to the community and brought our vision, and we're like, well, what do you think about it? And I guess what I've learned from going to each of those communities is that they had a lot of unique things that they wanted and didn't want. But they also had a lot of the same values, which are they wanted things for their community. They wanted that economic boost that they can get from it. They wanted that opportunity to go out on the trail after work and have that mental health benefit of being out there. And I guess that's what I found, is that the communities all had these same priorities that they valued. And those translated to the counties and the government officials in the forest. They understood that those priorities from the community, and they wanted to get to them too. But it was, I think, the middle part where you're trying, how do we get that done with all this red tape over here, or green tape, or whatever you call it, and still serve the communities. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Okay. No, it does. And I think that still goes back to the vision. Again, what works for one community may not necessarily work for another. But there's a lot of overlap, with what the communities want. I know that recreation zones, really is a term that really came out of this Connected Communities outreach. And that was a little more of the personal aspect of each community. And Greg, kind of give us an idea of what that means when we use the term recreational zone.
Yeah. So when we first, we were focused on how do we connect these towns, like these linear long distance trails. That was what we really wanted to get to the bottom of. But as we started to meet with people, really like in those meetings and in the survey booklet where there was a map, people started to just circle areas that were next to their community. We would call like the wildland urban interface. So it's like where the community meets the forest, that zone where people, wanted to just be able to walk from their house or ride their bike, and get right into a trail system. So we started to see this pattern of people like circling these same areas of like either they recreate there now, maybe there's some social trails that weren't built, to Forest Service spec or to the system trails. So we started to see this pattern. I think we identified 9 rec zones. We call them citizen inventoried recreation zones because they were brought to us by the citizens. And they're really areas where those communities want to see more recreation opportunities, whether it be for hiking or biking. I think we identified 2 that were the communities wanted motorized use because there is existing motorized use happening there right now. And part of that was trying to get a handle on the motorized use. Like 2 of these areas, people just ride wherever they want. So it's kind of becoming an issue. So it was like, how do we better manage that? How do we keep people on trails by, proposing like higher quality trails? How do we move the trails out of the wetlands? So there's a lot of work that has to be done. But I think those were part of the puzzle that we didn't see in the beginning that really were a focus for each of the towns and really caused us, like, that's why it takes 5 years to do this. You think you're going to head down the road one way, and then there's these forks in the road, and you take one, and then there's another one. And so, but it was important to each of these towns. So we put a lot of time trying to figure out like what these rec zones would look like. And, part of California too is this 30 by 30 initiative to conserve 30% of the lands. And these rec zones could fit right into that model. So we're excited about it.
Yeah, definitely another bonus, on that side. And Michelle, in these, the logistics side of a rec zone, obviously you potentially could be dealing with county property, maybe some state property, private property, and federal lands. Has that been problematic, or does it seem like a lot of these groups have kind of come together in their own community and can see a vision?
I mean, of course, is problematic. Yes, definitely. I mean, I think that we've had support, like the counties, the federal government. They've all been like, yes, we want to do this. So, I mean, I feel really lucky to be able to say that we have people want to do it. But yes, it's definitely difficult. And I guess I will plug too, just because we're talking about it, we do have the Indian Valley Recreation Improvement Project that's in Greenville. And that's kind of a good example of everything you just said, Greg, because on this one, we've learned a lot on how to do it. This one's a project with Sierra Institute and the Plumas National Forest. And we have a lot of that permitting done. So we've done some of that nasty, hopefully can get done, like all those little steps. And our next step is we want to bring it to Greenville. So hopefully this summer, if you're in Greenville, come down. We want to talk about what you want to see in trails. And do you want motorized here? Do you not want motorized here? Do you want to go over here or over here? Those are the kind of questions we want to ask on a very project-specific level, going from a vision to like, this is gonna happen. So yeah. Get your thoughts in.
So it's literally already on the pathway of the people's plan.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's great, because I mean, ultimately, by the time you do get to the level of it's time to pull the trigger on environmental and getting ready to lay out a trail or the plan itself and dig some dirt, it's nice to know that everybody's on board. And there's not that immediate like all of a sudden you have to stop. There's a lawsuit. This is not what we thought it was going to be. Whereas the communities all come together and really they're the driving force behind it.
Right. I think it can take a lot of like the wind out of the sails when you have to be like, okay, wait. Now we have to go through NEPA and CEQA, and NEPA and CEQA are very important. So I think that's what's nice about this one is that we have all this momentum going and we get to keep going with it.
So what's next? We've got all this work done, and if you go to sierratrails.org, you can actually see the plan in its current form. And when I say plan, I still am talking about the vision. As we want folks to understand that again, this is a vision, but where are we now? Are we this is something that ultimately will this be published, or is this going to just sit on our website, or where is this going to live once it's complete, at least in its current form?
So there's a version on the website that is, I think, really pared down from the, I want to say 700 million pages that it ended up being. That I think is really what the community you get all the information there. It's great. That's there. And we can totally have a fully published version, but it is right now with SNC. So we have to make sure it goes through that review process as well. I will say though, what I think is really cool is, so with Greg's plan, I mean, you were there, I wasn't there, Greg, but he started out, didn't you have like a route that you biked? And and that's kind of partially where everything stemmed from. You had this route that you had done.
Yeah, both by mountain bike and by motorcycle. Like you can get to all these towns on existing roads with some trails linked in. So I think the idea is really to make it all single track is kind of the goal. I mean, similar to how the Pacific Crest Trail was developed, it utilized a lot of roads in the beginning. And as they move forward as their organization and with the agency, they slowly close those gaps of road and make it all trail. And so that's kind of the goal with this, is that we did map out, I think, an 800-mile route that exists currently. They use existing trails, existing roads that you can go to that website and look at the route, and you can start doing that as soon as the snow melts. And then you're going to see the other side of the plan, which is like where these infill of new trails could potentially happen. They've all been like desktop reviewed, and we developed kind of our own best management practices for optimum location review, we call it, like where the trail should go and where it shouldn't go. So all that's available on the site, but yeah, you can, like this summer, you can start touring all these towns and get right into the main street and, hopefully eat at one of the restaurants, stay at one of the motels, say hi to the people.
Right. Yeah. Well, you started this podcast talking about how it looked like an alignment, so people got excited to write it. And I think that's what I'm excited about now, is that now you can, and then over the years, write it every year. Each year, hopefully we'll have more single track trails for you to utilize as well. So we're excited.
It's amazing that in having this vision and going through this process over the years, probably even opened our eyes, as you were both just talking about, that there are so many existing trails and roads that these communities are still connected even as we speak, and many of them were connected during the gold rush days, their resource extraction days, even prior to that, connected through the native peoples, and how they communicated and commerced, with each other, in their communities, prior to any of us being here. So it's kind of nice to know that in reality, it's a vision that may have come from the past. We just reignited it, and we're gonna move forward and have some fun with it, make some refinements, and make it our own. But ultimately, the shovel's going to go to the dirt, at some point. And have we gotten to that point? I know that we're close to being published, but have we physically worked on a trail, built a trail that would fall under the Connected Communities vision?
Like I said, the trail projects that we're working on now were started before Connected Communities. They are in the vision, they're in the document, but we haven't like taken, because we just published the document. It'll be generations of work. So we haven't taken, since the plan's been published, we haven't taken a project and moved it forward. Part of that's, like the current environment with the Forest Service, their agency got dismantled. There's not like hardly anybody left in recreation. So we're kind of, in a new environment, I guess, working with the Forest Service. But again, generations of work. It's not going to, in the beginning, I thought, 10 years, we could get this thing done. And, selfishly.
I remember the 10-year plan.
Selfishly, because I wanted to be able to ride it all before I'm too old. But, I think a good friend of mine, Chris McNamara, called me and he was just so excited about it. And he kind of just brought it home to me of like, this is generations of work. Like, just take your time with it and make it thoughtful and meaningful, and don't like rush it. And what an opportunity, and it kind of like slowed my roll. I was like, yeah, we don't have to like hurry up and get this done. Like, we want to keep our trail crews employed and our current staff, and we want to help these communities. But to think it's all going to happen overnight is just like, it's way too big of a project. A couple cool things have happened since we've been doing our Connected Communities is that orogenesis was created. So this is a contiguous trail that goes from Canada all the way to Baja, like 5,000 miles. So we partnered with them to make sure that the route through our zone made sense, that it was ground truth. And a gentleman, Kurt, just rode the whole thing, like soloed it, and he got met by people and friends along the way, but rode the whole thing. So now there's this orogenesis route that comes through our zone, through the La Sierra, comes through some of our towns. And then at the same time, backcountry discovery routes, so like adventure motorcycles, published a route that we worked with them to bring route through towns like Downeyville and Quincy and Taylorsville and Chester. So when you go to our site, you'll also see those routes you can download. So cool collaborations, and again, just trying to get people into our towns was at the forefront of it, and then to have these other organizations partner up and bring people into the towns is great.
I think keeping it in a generational mold, I think helps, and slowing the roll probably had some pretty good positive unintended consequences, and Orogenesis is one of them. All of a sudden, here's this project that was happening, and now we're connected to it, and they're connected to us. And I think that we'll see more of that as time goes on, especially when you have visionaries like McNamara and other organizations like the Sierra Beach Trail Stewardship, and folks too. This isn't our plan. And this isn't any one organization's plan. This isn't a plan of those that help fund it. This is your plan. It's, as Greg mentioned earlier, this is the people's plan, and in reality, it can be used anywhere. You just have to cut and paste and plug in certain variables, but different states, different countries. And I think over time, the vision of this is it may not ever truly be complete, but there's kind of a beauty behind that it just keeps growing and changing, and we certainly need stuff like that in this day and age.
Yeah, I think one of the things, like when we first started with Sierra Nevada Conservancy too, was to produce something that was like replicable. And so we've called it a recipe book for how to do this. And that's something we're proud of too. And I know Sierra Nevada Conservancy is too, is that anybody can kind of pick up this recipe book. They don't have to follow it exactly, but the steps that we took were pretty extensive and well thought out, and you can just read about it. And take it to your own community and have a pretty good jump on things, like, because we learned a lot, and we started down some roads and we didn't end up there, and so all of our kind of like mistakes and missteps are accounted for, and we put in here the things that did work.
So, currently, Michelle, we have got to announce last year the completion of the Quincy Taylorsville connector. And that is certainly two communities that were connected by road. And as Greg mentioned, you could already drive on a dirt road or a paved road, from Quincy to Taylorsville. But now you can do it almost nearly on single track. And, that may seem like a fun thing. And Quincy and Taylorsville are pretty close to each other. But in the essence of connected communities, I mean, I personally, I think that's an accomplishment that fits the mold, that even though we were working on that prior to this vision. But maybe other trail systems, other communities, they have trails in their system already and projects they're working on that could fit the mold that, could help them progress forward.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's also been a benefit for me once I jumped on with the Connect Communities work, was I got to meet all kinds of people in different organizations all across California who are doing similar things or had asked questions about us, about how we did our things. And it's exciting to hear all this work that's going on everywhere.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm super stoked. And I mean, what's next? I mean, obviously Greg mentioned, the quote official publishing, will be coming up. But you can certainly go to the website now, sierratrails.org. You'll see the links on there, on our homepage. But yeah, what currently is next? What's next for you?
We got a lot going on right now. And we kind of from it prioritize these trail systems that are for these communities. So we have that going on. We have the Indian Valley Rec project that's in Greenville. Another big connection that's coming is the connection between Reno, Truckee, Sierraville, and Loyalton. That's in NEPA right now, hopefully the last year of NEPA. This is the third year, so hopefully it's the last year of NEPA. That one we're really excited about. And then there's, we have our regular maintenance projects that are going on, which I've definitely discovered is very important. That's a big priority, especially with the Forest Service being gutted like it is keeping the trails we have open, because the community relies on them already. And then we have Mexican Mine, and we got stuff going on for Big Boulder Trail. Hopefully will be finished this year.
Down in the Downeyville system, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we got one in Peavine going on.
Yeah, Peavine and Reno. There's some NEPA to be able to bring in some trails that were built by the community, realign some trails that maybe went through archaeological sites, just poorly built, but bring it up to a standard that the Forest Service will accept. Mm-hmm. And then we just we're applying to a big project up in Susanville called Fredonia Pass, which is like a 14-year-old project that got initiated by the community years and years ago. We're partnering with Lassen County and Lassen National Forest. We applied through Sierra Nevada Conservancy to hopefully build around 7.5 miles. It'll connect Westwood with Susanville and the Biz Johnson Trail, which is a really cool rails to trails route that if you haven't checked out, it's really like world-class rails to trails project.
It's kind of nice on these, the methodical approach too, and that 10 years, and that number got thrown out so many times, and quote, a legacy project over a 10-year period. And even some of that terminology was 5 years ago. And here we are 5 years into that 10. And it's like, oh, good grief. What the hell were we thinking? not even close, but kind of the slow, methodology and how we're approaching this, as kind of allowed us to smell the roses, as we speak going on, and all these other projects that are going on around us. And the ones you just mentioned are awesome. Chico Velo over in Butte County, trail building organization, they have just started opening their Colby Mountain trails that they've been building for some time now. They are super excited. And many of those trails are going to come right up really close and butt next up to Plumas County. And eventually, I think we'll see a connection there, over time. And I mean, how cool is that from, Chico and Quincy are connected, via multiple highways. But wow, to be able to get on a moto, horse, foot, bike, whatever, and have that trip is pretty amazing.
Yeah, we worked with Thad Walker, who's with the RCD over there in Butte County. They had the Colby Mountain Project going through NEPA. And he asked, hey, would you guys be interested in doing a feasibility study to connect Colby Mountain into the Connected Communities Plan? He got it funded through Sierra Nevada Conservancy, so that's when Butte County got added to the mix. But we do have routes through it's Humboldt Summit, I think is what it's called, but on the west shore of Lake Almanor that connects into Colby Mountain. So again, the scope of the project went from 9 towns to now it's 15. And, adding Butte County was great because they are building a great little system there that's going to be like high value for that community.
It showcases too, again, Chico Velo is another organization because it is going to, and Michelle, you mentioned this earlier too, a lot of communities, over the decades get grants, for parks and, things within their communities. But if the financial or at least the boots on the ground are not available to sustain, those awesome community projects, then they go by the wayside, and they get, maintenance is important. So that's part of it. If you build it, they will come. Well, if they come, you got to keep them coming and you got to keep it safe and fun. So the maintenance side is huge. So, I mean, obviously that's where these communities, when they decide on their own recreation plan and how they want to be involved, it really is their trail because they know their community, and we're a small nonprofit, and we maintain hundreds of miles, each year and thousands since our inception. But we can only do so much, and it truly is a community partnership, and being connected to all these communities, I think, is the only way it's going to sustain. But yeah, the maintenance side has to be something that really is looked into pretty aggressively.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's another argument for that slow roll, because then you get more time to build trails with purpose and character, and then you get the community members who will fall in love with these trails, and then they want to go out there and help you dig or help you maintain it. And that's how we keep going. All of our volunteers are a huge reason why we're so successful. They really are a huge part of the Sierra Beach Trail Stewardship.
Well, here we go. Connected Communities, the redo with an X on the end. It's not really a redo, but it's it's envisioning the current vision is where we are today. That is on the website. Again, folks, sierratrails.org. You can check out all the information and you can dig as deep as you want on there, but there's overview. And I assume, can they contact you on there too if they have direct questions, or they just click through info? Like I can see Michelle going, Marty, don't give out my email address on this podcast.
No, please don't. I think there is an email address there.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
What I'll say.
Yeah, it's info at Sierra Trails,
Yeah.
and depending on your question, it'll get
Directed to the right person.
yes.
Yeah. All right, you two. Well, I mean, this is, I think we're in a great spot, and I'm looking forward to, watching this move forward, and now feeling like we're not trying to finish it. We're just we're trying to live it, and I think that's kind of the cool thing is there's no finish line for this one, which has changed everything. But yeah, final thoughts with that. In the beginning, I think it was like, wow, you publish a plan, government agencies publish it, it's there, people can take it as a recipe book, and you're done with it. But thank goodness that's not really what this is anymore.
Yeah, I mean, this is generations of work. Each community is unique. I think right now, we always need funding. So we need people picking up shovels, and we need people writing checks. So if you have a foundation, or you have stocks you'd like to transfer, you want to make an end of year tax deductible donation, we're ready.
Yeah, or just $5. That goes a lot way.
Yeah. Yeah. Jump in on one of our $5 a foot campaigns. But really it's, we have the framework, and it's just going to be a matter of financing it all. And again, making sure each community is bought in and wants to help.
Well, that's what's so nice is your investment, and this is an investment. It's an investment in our public lands. I mean, these are our lands, and it's either boots on the ground, swinging a tool, or writing a check if you can, or doing both. And that truly will be an investment in our near future and our kids and grandkids' future too. And let's keep this generational plan going.
Yeah, I'm excited for the next steps. I think the next steps are going to be more fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Anytime you get out, swing a tool and get
Exactly.
a little bit dirty on the trail and have fun doing it is definitely good times. Well,
yeah. And joining us at one of our events, we always have information booths set up with all the maps and kind of up to date information, and folks that man the booth that can give you great information. So that's at Lost and Found, Downeyville Classic, Mountains to Meadows here in Quincy, and then also our Yuba shop here in Quincy. Come experience these trails, hop on a shuttle, take a tour. We have guided tours coming out that are project focused, so you'll get to see some of the newest projects, the newest trails being built, learn about the project, meet the trail crew. So there's a lot of ways to get more knowledge, get more involved, and we welcome you to come experience the Lost Sierra.
Yeah, I'd give a special shout out to the enduro race in Mountains to Meadows, because I did that last year and it was such a blast. So fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's no better way to either explore your investment opportunities or see the progress of the investment you've already made.
Exactly.
No better way to come out. Yeah, hop on an e-bike, hop on a bike, or just with feet, and one of our guides gets you out into the forest and on the trails, and I think that sells itself. Without anything else. Well, thank you too much, as always, for being on the show, and ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us. Yeah, you've been listening to Dirt Magic, the podcast.
Thank you, Marty.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Marty.
You've been listening to Dirt Magic, the podcast, brought to you by the good people of the Sierra Buttes Trail Stewardship. For future and past shows, visit dirtmagicpodcast.com or search for us on your favorite listening platform. Music by The Saddle Tramps. To learn more about supporting the SBTS and upcoming events, visit sierratrails.org. I'm Martin Scheel, and I'll see you out on the trails. Thanks again for listening.